Good evening. It's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, September 27, 2016. Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight for the English edition of Aura News, where we bring you today's top stories translated into English every weeknight. The World Bank projects Albania's 2016 economic growth to be 3.2%, up from the 2.8% it was in 2015, and forecasts it reaching 3.5% in 2018. The World Bank representative Tahsin Sayed presented the report, noting that the accelerating growth helps improve employment in Albania. Sayed also put emphasis on further improving the business climate and taking measures to attract more foreign investors. Albania is an attractive country, but more work should be done to create a more favorable environment for investments, he said. Regarding the attack against the Lebanese investor, Mr. Sayed called it an unfortunate incident and asked the government to continue with its efforts to improve the business climate in Albania. Regarding the national road, the World Bank rep declared that this is up to Albanian institutions and that the World Bank cannot intervene. Along with reviving consumption, the World Bank report noted that private investments supported by large projects in the energy sector are expected to lead the economic recovery in Albania, contributing 2/3 of the recovery between 2016 and 2018. During the Albania-Germany Economic Forum, the former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder asked for the judicial reforms implementation so that investors can feel safe to invest their money in Albania. He added that the judiciary's decisions should be based on law so that a negative justice system will not negatively affect investors. The former Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany considers Albania to be a key country in Western Balkans. He says the path towards Europe is not an easy one and that deep reforms are needed. But he added the path of reform is always difficult, relaying that the path to the EU goes through a number of difficult reforms, the results of which require time. You need to make decisions now, but the results will be seen 3 to 5 years later. This doesn't mean that you give up, he said. According to Mr. Schröder, Albania needs private investments, so creating conditions for such investments is necessary, highlighting the judicial reform and its implementation. Judicial decisions should be supported in laws. Albania needs private investments. Investors are interested in a trustworthy justice. Rapid solutions are needed for judicial decisions. You are accomplishing the judicial reform. Brussels respects the efforts towards undertaking the judicial reform, the former German Chancellor said. Referring to a project for creating a joint regional market without fiscal barriers, Prime Minister Rama declared that what Germany and France did for Europe can serve as an example to our region, to be a region of ethnic and religious harmony. Regarding trade and diplomatic relations between the two countries, Prime Minister Rama said that trade exchanges have increased, even though much work still needs to be done. Discussions at the forum were later focused on strengthening vocational education and creating jobs. Prime Minister Rama said that Albania has followed the German model for vocational education, increasing the number of young people who have chosen vocational schools. The Assembly Speaker held a meeting with the former German Chancellor this morning. The judicial reform and Albania's advancement towards the European Union were a focus of the meeting. The former German Chancellor declared that Germany will continue to support Albania's progress towards EU membership and the integration process. He stressed that this is the time that Albania needs to make the right decisions and implement them. Referring to the judicial reform, Schröder praised the consensual adoption of the reform and emphasized that there are enough reasons to be positive for Albania's European future and the Balkans' future. The Assembly Speaker declared that the legitimacy of the judicial reform stems from consensus between the parties. Mr. Schröder and the Assembly Speaker shared the conviction that more should be done to avoid conflicting rhetoric and to increase trust between the parties, especially when discussing major EU integration issues. The judicial reform is the top of reforms and will help Albania's transformation process. I hope the judicial reform has a successful implementation, Mr. Meta said. The European Parliament's reporter Knut Fleckenstein and the German ambassador to Albania were also present at the meeting. President Nishani held a meeting with leaders of the National Security University where he gave a speech declaring that sustainable peace in the Balkans is still an unfinished mission. I think that with all the improvements, sustainable peace and democratic stability in the Balkans remains an unfinished mission and still has a critical need for the presence and contributions of the U.S. and NATO. On the other hand, I can say that U.S.-Albanian cooperation remains of strategic importance to the interest of both our countries and has vital value for the geopolitics of our region, said Nishani. The president said that Albania guarantees its unconditional commitment to collective defense. Albania reconfirms the principle of collective defense against threats to each member country and is ready to fulfill its obligations within this purpose. Also, it supports access and joint projects to security threats like terrorism, civil conflicts, violent extremism, organized crime, illegal trafficking, environmental security, civil emergencies, and coping with the refugee crisis, added Mr. Nishani, further saying that along with the achievements, Albania has learned a lot from its mistakes. The president concluded his speech by stressing that Albania strongly supports the efforts of Macedonia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Kosovo in their NATO membership. Albania is committed to support the journey of these countries on their path towards full membership with expertise and its experience. Politicians are aware that internal problems have had a negative impact on Albania's integration into the European Union. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, FM Bushati, and the chairwoman of the Council of Integration shared the same opinion that the political parties should separate their personal interests from major interests and should deepen the reforms. We have reflected on our internal problems. We do not create a difference between the daily interest and the major interest. I think that the integration process depends more on political humor rather than the EU's will, declared the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The chairwoman of the National Integration Council was on the same page with the minister when she declared, "It's true that we should do more to solve internal problems. Parliament should have a more active role, given that the laws are adopted there," she said. They both asked for a strengthened role of Parliament in this process, as it is the institution that coordinates work for Albania's integration together with National Council of Integration. The statements were made on the second day of European Summer School, which aims to create a group of experts with deep knowledge over Albania's membership process into the European Union. The Democratic Party chairman, Basha, started a tour of discussions with the DP's members all around Albania in preparation for the parliamentary elections. Mr. Basha was in Fier today, where he declared that communication with citizens and returning hope to the people is the opposition's choice to win against what he deems the drug cartel, gangs, and governmental crime. The DP chairman emphasized that communication, the inclusion and cooperation with citizens is the new Democratic Party approach. How can we win against the gangs, crime, drugs, and corruption of Edi Rama? The answer is one thing: by allying with the citizens and giving people the hope that political rotation will not be made only to remove some people from their jobs and replace them with some others, Basha declared. Mr. Basha said that the problems faced by citizens will be the focus of the Democratic Party. He emphasized that an alliance with crime and corruption will never be an alternative for the Democratic Party just to come into power. Our key to victory will never be to answer gangs with gangs. The Albanian people are our strength, the opposition leader declared. The Coalition of Domestic Observers publicized its monitoring reports for the partial local elections held for the new Dibra mayor. From the field monitoring of the process, the Commission points out many problems they believe violated the election's quality and did not guarantee European standards in democratic elections. The coalition raised its concerns over vote buying and pressures on voters and says that the institutional response to provide solutions was too low. Faced with these concerns, the Coalition of Domestic Observers offers 9 recommendations for changes to the Electoral Code, with establishing a structure in the prosecution for treating electoral corruption cases at the core of their concerns, and which they feel needs a rapid solution. Also, the coalition recommends that high-ranking state officials should not have the right to take on leadership roles in electoral campaign activities, especially when they belong to the local government. The local observer's remarks act as a reminder that the interventions in the Electoral Code for the parliamentary elections in 2017 are extremely important. That's all for our English edition this evening. Please join us again Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. for your local news in English. My name is Mari, and on behalf of Aura News, thank you and good night.